Aye, shout out to Robin, welcome to MMO Gang. So as you can see, he's made over £106 this week from his side hustle by blowing the bagpipe at parties by advertising on Facebook. So using an online store like, digital marketing for Facebook ads, this will fulfill your side hustle and make you more money. So guys, you don't need to make thousands to be shouted out on MMO Gang. You just need to be using your skills to make money online. Now, if you want to be shouted out on the next episode, just send me a DM on Instagram, Twitter, or on Snapchat. Welcome to MMO Gang, Robin.
Aye, it's Poku Banks, baby. Today we're in a different setting. So this is my service accommodation unit. And today I'm going to talk about the service accommodation unit. I'm going to talk about how I got the service accommodation unit, how you can run it, what you can expect, the costs, the funding, how much furniture you need, the pros and cons, everything. So stay tuned. Now bear in mind, I'm only 19 years old and I go to university. So this isn't just for the older people that have a lot of money to spare. You can do this with as little as £5,000 and I'm going to teach you how. This method is called rent-to-rent service accommodation. And as you can see, where we are right now is my service accommodation. So this is the kitchenette, as you can see. So this is the welcome basket, all the essentials that you need, everything's here. So I'm gonna go through everything you need to know in this video. So what is it? What is service accommodation? Simply, a service accommodation is simply a fully furnished property which is available for both short-term and the long-term. And now when I say fully furnished, I mean furnished to the max. These offer similar, if not more facilities than you see at a normal hotel. So for example, Wi-Fi, a TV, all the usual essentials, cutlery as you can see, and all the clean essentials that you see in a normal household like these. Now this service accommodation is fully furnished to the point where all you need to do is, if you was to travel here, you just need to bring your spare change of clothes and all your personal items. Everything else is here. Now a lot of people prefer service accommodation to hotels. Why? Because it's more of a home environment. It's not just a simple room. It's got a nice living space with the kitchenette connected. It's got a master bedroom which has an ensuite, and then another bedroom and another main bathroom. It works out to be a lot cheaper for customers that are booking on AirBnB or booking.com as the cost per head goes down. Now there's two ways to get a service accommodation. You can simply buy a property and then lay it out on Airbnb, or you can do it my way, which is the rent-to-rent method. Let me explain. So the rent-to-rent method, as the name suggests, you are renting it from a landlord or estate agent and they've given you the permission to go rent it out again on another platform. Since you're renting from two different markets, they'll charge you one price and then you are now charging this other market a different price. And this different price is a lot higher, so you're making a profit. In RSA, rent-to-rent service accommodation, they'll rent it to you at a normal price, a normal monthly price. And then you go rent it out on a nightly premium to your customers on Airbnb and Booking.com. Why? Because you've added value to the property. When I first came to this property, this place was pretty much empty. There was barely anything here. I've added a lot of things here. So the TV, Wi-Fi, all of the essentials, all come out of my own pocket. The added value that I brought to this property gives me the right to increase the price on a nightly premium for the customers. As when they come here, it's literally a home far away from home. Okay, now let's say you rent a 2-bedroom apartment for £1,000 a month. And now let's say your bills are around £300 a month. So this includes, TV license, council tax, water, electricity, and maybe gas. Now a 2-bedroom apartment can accommodate around 4 people, 2 double beds in 2 rooms. Or you can accommodate 5 people if you get a sofa bed in the living room, which I have here. Since 5 people are staying in your apartment, that means they're basically all paying £20 each. If you were to go stay in a hotel, you probably have to pay around £40 each per head. So here you can see why it's cheaper for them to stay in their service accommodation. Now let's assume that you have a 70% occupancy rate. Occupancy rate is essentially the amount of nights that you have booked in a month. So if your whole month is booked 30 nights, then that's 100% occupancy rate. If only 10 nights out of a possible 30 nights in a month booked in your apartment, then you have an occupancy rate of around 33%. So now, like I said, let's assume you have a 70% occupancy rate. This means that you're booked out for at least 21 nights of the month, as 70% of 30 is 21. £100 a night times 21, you have 2,100. Minus the rent, £1,000, so you're left at 1,100. Minus the bills, 300, so you're left at £800. Now, just to simplify things, this is essentially just your profit. There's a few more other costs that you may have involved, but this all depends on your apartment and whatnot. So now, essentially, you are making £800 off a property that you do not own. You are leveraging. You rent it and manage it from the landlord or the estate agent. Okay, now let's talk about the legals of this method. In order to start, I would recommend you have a limited company. You don't want everything to be done in your name. You want to make sure you have limited liability. So if anything was to go wrong, your limited company would be in trouble, not you, as you have limited liability. So you personally are not responsible for any trouble that the company gets into. This is simply just to keep you safe and for more tax advantages. Some estate agents simply just won't deal with you if you don't have a limited company. Next, you need to join a redress scheme. This is essentially a hub where they resolve all sorts of problems between property owners and landlords and tenants. So if one of my guests had an issue with me and we couldn't resolve it, they can go to my property redress scheme and get compensation from there. They'll then investigate and look into the issue themselves and resolve it. This is a requirement. A lot of people will not deal with you in the property game if you don't have one of these redress schemes under your company. The next one you need to join is the ICO, the Information Commissioner's Office. The ICO is all about data protection. They follow the Data Protection Act. We as service accommodation providers get a lot of personal data from our clients. So if someone wants to book on Airbnb, we know where they live, we know their address, we know their name, all of that. Now, as a part of data protection, we can't publicly disclose all of that information. So that's why we joined the ICO, Information Commissioner's Office. And now, if you know what HMO is, service accommodation isn't as regulated compared to the HMO. We have Article 4 directions in many cities and councils around the UK, lots of minimum room sizes, a minimum and a maximum amount of people that can live in the HMO. And now with service accommodation, the only regulation I've seen within the UK is the London 90-day rule. Essentially, you can only list your service accommodation in London for 90 days of the year. This means that for the remaining 270 days of the year, you can't list your apartment on Airbnb or Booking.com or any other online travel agency. Now simply, the one way to get around that is simply not to have your service accommodation in London. My service accommodation is in Kent, in the local tourist area. And since it's in Kent, the 90-day London rule don't apply to me. Now you're probably thinking, Poku, like where should I find my service accommodation? Where should it be located? Where's the best place to get the most clients from Airbnb or any of the other online travel agencies? Now essentially, what you need to think of is your prospect customer, your future customer, your target audience. Who do you want to come to your Airbnb? More time you'll be looking for a corporate tenant profile. Now the corporate tenant profile is essentially someone that travels for business or travels for work related purposes. So what would they need around them? Now for example, a service accommodation in the city centre. Why? Because it's closer to the train station, it's closer to everything around them, amenities. Secondly, you may want to have your service accommodation around the headquarters. So when companies are sending their employees over to different headquarters or doing for meetings, they'll book your accommodation to go to those meetings. And finally, just make sure there's good transport links. So make sure it's easy to get to your service accommodation through, public transport, bus, train, tram, whatever. Or simply just nice roads leading towards your service accommodation. So this may mean dual carriageways, motorways, A roads, B roads, all sorts. Now it's not just corporate tenants that you get. I've also had family and friends come over as well. So for example, I had families come over to visit their family. Their family lives nearby, so they book this apartment to go see their family. But for family and friends, what you need is amenities nearby. So this may mean shopping centres, lots of activities to do. So this may mean a theme park, a football stadium, a park, whatever. Universities are good ones as well. So obviously during the coronavirus pandemic, not many people come over for graduation. But in a normal time of graduation, a lot of international students, their parents that come from China or any other countries, they'll come over to come see them for graduation. And this is where they'll book their service accommodations. They don't want to stay in a hotel. They'd rather stay in the service accommodation where they cook nice food instead of eating takeaway all day. Now cool, Poku, this sounds all great. I want a service accommodation. How much does it cost me? Now I'm going to tell you my own personal experience with how much it cost me. But in general, a lot of people tell you that you need around 5 to 6 grand to start. But let me tell you how much it cost me. Okay, so now for furnishings, this costs around 2 grand, so £2,000. So this may include the TV, all the essentials that you see over here, all the linen, all of this will add up to your 2 grand. I also had to buy a new sofa bed and a chair for the property just to make it look a lot more better, up the value. Now it depends on what type of deal you get with the estate agent or the landlord. So if it's a furnished apartment, then obviously you pay a lot more rent, but then it's already ready to go. So that means you don't have much to spend on the furnishing. Whereas if you get an empty apartment, you have cheaper rent, but you have to furnish it all yourself. Mine was part furnished, so it came with all the white goods, so the fridge and whatnot, as it's connected to the apartment. It came with the mattresses, which was a lot easier for me, and the bed frames. So what I had to do was just add on the linen and whatnot. It came with a coffee table, which the tripod is sitting on right now. It came with a nice table, lots of chairs. So yeah, essentially it depends on what type of deal you get. If this was completely unfurnished, then this place would have cost me around $3,000 to maybe even $4,000 to furnish. Now since I got mine through a estate agent, I also have to pay a deposit. So this is around 1.3k. So essentially when I give back the keys, they'll check the apartment for any damage and then they'll take it away from the deposit. And now during the summertime, you get a lot of tourists coming to your service accommodation. They're visiting the area. So again, shopping centres, all sorts of amenities, all sorts of activities, all sorts of restaurants, anything that's around the area which will benefit them and bring them over. Now you're probably thinking, Poku, how do I advertise my service accommodation? How do I get people to join and come into my service accommodation? Essentially, there's 2 types of places. Online travel agencies, which are OTAs, and direct bookings. Now the good thing about online travel agencies is that simply, it's like eBay. So you put your service accommodation on there and then essentially they advertise it for you. Someone searches, oh, I want to go to London, and then your place pops up. Or I want to go to Birmingham, and if your service accommodation is in Birmingham, it'll pop up. Now people will say they don't put in any money for marketing, but essentially you kind of do it in your commission. So when you sell stuff on eBay, eBay take their commission. When you get a booking on Airbnb or Booking.com, they take their commission. Bear in mind, Booking.com spends around 1 million every day for advertising. So the money has to come from somewhere. Now direct bookings are simply people that make bookings either through your website or personally through you, and this comes directly to you. This is where you make most of your money, and this is how you save money on fees and commission, because commission can really add up over time. Now I've been running my service accommodation for around 6 or 7 months now. Let me give you the pros and cons of running service accommodation. Now the first pro is cash flow. You can make so much money with service accommodation. As you're charging a nightly premium every night, you make so much more money compared to someone else who's doing HMO, as they're just charging a monthly fee for a room. Especially in the summer months as well, you could charge nearly 50% more than what you was currently charging in the winter or in the spring months, as there's high demand. The second pro is that simply that it's just easier to set up, in my opinion, compared to HMO. Whereas HMO, there's lots of legals in the way, lots of regulation. You know, you gotta make sure the room sizes are correct. You gotta make sure you have 5 doors. You gotta make sure you have 5 exits. You gotta make sure you have all sorts of things that can cost you a lot of money. With service accommodation, you also do have to have these things as well, but it's not regulated as much, so it's easier to start up. The only thing that you look out for is the London 90-day rule. But my service accommodation isn't in London, so I don't really have to worry about that. So I'm happy and I'm good. Now the cons of running a service accommodation. Simply, this is just a seasonal business, I'll be real. You know, in the summer and spring, you'll be having the best time of your life. Money be coming in, bookings be coming in. But, you know, as it gets towards the autumn and winter months, you know, why do people have to travel? Yes, they'll travel in December to see their family for Christmas and, you know, New Year's Eve. But other than that, during November, you know, early December, people have no reason to travel really. So bookings can get really, really dead. So these times, it may get a lot harder. The only way you can combat this is through corporate bookings, or you have to lower your price. Now, the second con that I'll say that this is simply just not passive. You know, after every person that leaves his apartment, you have to get your cleaners to come in to switch over the bed sheets, change it, clean up the whole place to make sure it looks presentable for the next guest. This is very, very time consuming. Even though I do have a cleaner, I still have to manage her and make sure everything's on the correct place. So I still have to do stuff on my end. Whereas with a HMO or just normal buy to let, you literally get your tenants in there and they barely bother you. Whereas with a service accommodation, they're brand new to this place, so they're gonna call you, ask a lot of questions, and it gets long, I'll be real. Now, you're probably thinking, this is a great model and all, but is it recession proof? Now, unless you're living on a rock, you must be aware of what's going on right now, you know, the health pandemic. During the health pandemic, pretty much the whole world was on lockdown. People weren't allowed to travel, so that means everyone that had service accommodation units, it was a bad time for them. Even me, I was even impacted by the health pandemic, but this is what I did, and I'll explain to you how I saved myself and minimized my losses. Now, my total cost of my service accommodation unit was around $1,500 every month. Obviously, I'll make this back from bookings and whatnot and make a profit on top. But when the health pandemic came in, online travel agencies shut down, so this means my revenue drops and my bookings drop as well. Since my bookings are dropping, that means literally $1,500 is coming out of my account every month without any revenue coming in. So I'm just losing money. And I thought to myself, you know what, in order to, you know, minimize my losses, I might as well just turn this into a little longer of a let. So essentially get someone in here for like 3 months. So what I did is I got someone in here on April the 6th. They stayed for 3 months and they came out on June the 6th. So what deal I proposed to them is that they're paying me $1,200 every month. They paid $1,200 every month for 3 months up front, so they paid me $3,600 up front. So then they stayed in this apartment for 3 months. And while they're staying in this apartment, the health pandemic was calming down and then the company was starting to reopen. So now I can then list it back on AirBnB and make my profits again. And now you're probably thinking, like I said before, my monthly costs are around $1,500 and they'll pay me $1,200 a month. So this means I'm making a loss of £300 every month for 3 months. So that's a total loss of £900. And you may be thinking, but Poku, you still made a loss. But in my opinion, I feel like I did the best I could possibly do in that situation. So in a situation like that where it's out of my control, I did the best of what I could do to make it in my control and lower my losses. So to only lose £900 in a historic event that's going to affect our lives forever, I think I did pretty well personally. So with the service accommodation game, actually in fact the property game, it's all about thinking outside the box and thinking on your feet. You gotta be ready to adapt to market conditions because you never know what can happen. Now if you like this video, make sure you go check out my free property course that I got with my boy Denzel. It's on selfelevation.co.uk. It's got the whole property course which teaches you how to get into property, how to find the first property, HMO or service accommodation, and learn a lot more about deal sourcing and other businesses within the property game. This is completely free, no strings attached. Make sure you go check it out. It'll be linked down below, go check it out. Make sure you like, comment and subscribe, don't forget. But yeah man, I hope you appreciate that man. It's Poku Banks baby.